Now in this last video, I want to talk a little bit about motion graphics inside Photoshop. There are actually a number of different animation capabilities just inside Photoshop, and now we have those capabilities in both standard and extended versions. So no matter what version of Photoshop you have the ability to create a interesting amount of motion graphics. Not like you would be able to in After Effects, but you do certainly have a lot more capabilities than you ever did before. And with video being so all over the place, everybody's got it on their phones and computers and everywhere, on tablets, it's getting much more a necessity for a designer to be aware, at minimum, of how to create some basic motion graphics. So I just wanted to kind of show you what you're able to do just inside Photoshop. And again, this is both a standard and extended version, so no matter what version you have, you definitely have the ability to create these kind of motion graphics. And I just wanted to create kind of a little name swipe reveal here. It's kind of a common thing you see in movies and such. And if you shoot a video on your phone or something like that and you're editing, you can actually create these almost Hollywood-style motion graphics in just a few minutes. So I'll just kind of give you an idea of what you can do here. I've got this kind of starfield background. Let's just kind of say we're doing this kind of sci-fi thing here. And I've gone ahead and opened up my timeline. This is what you're going to need to create your animations here inside Photoshop. It's under the window menu. You go down here towards the bottom where it says timeline and just make sure this item is checked on. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new blank layer. You'll notice here in the timeline it shows up, it's corresponding to that layer, layer 1, layer 1. So this is the timeline, and by default gives me 5 seconds. And normally I don't do animations, motion graphics and such more than a few seconds inside Photoshop because it doesn't want, you don't want to do fully realized feature animations inside the program. It's not really designed for that, but can give you some really, really compelling basic motion graphic effects. So let's begin by grabbing my rectangular marquee tool. I'm just going to draw out a shape here toward the bottom. And I'm going to get my gradient tool. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm using the foreground to transparent gradient. I'm always using it, even when I'm using a regular gradient. Linear looks good. I'm just going to start on the right side here and just hold my shift key down and drag all the way to the other side there. It gives me a nice fade going from one side to the other. Now, I'm going to go ahead and put it in free transform again, and this time I'm just going to right click or control click on it and choose skew. And just give this a little bit of a tilt. I'm just holding down my Option key on Mac, Alt on Windows, and then tilting this graphic a little bit just to give it a little slant, like it's got kind of movement there, some speed there. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to duplicate that layer and then go into the edit menu and go down here to transform and choose flip vertical. And this just gives me a little bit of an offset of that graphic there. I'm just going to change the position a little bit so you can see where they're overlapping just slightly, and it's giving me a kind of an interesting look there. So these are still on two separate layers, so I'm going to go ahead and merge those back together just by pressing Command or Control E, and now those two elements are now on one layer. Now I want to add a layer style to this. So, and this is the fun part about doing these kind of motion graphics in Photoshop, is that you're already familiar with everything else inside Photoshop, so you can add all that to your animation. So for instance here, I'm going to add a little bit of glow to this graphic element. Just going to do a layer style, outer glow, and I'm going to actually give it more of a green outer glow, and we'll just increase the size there, and it looks pretty good. And don't forget to try different blend modes when you're doing this sort of thing. Get some different blends in the background there. I think screen actually looked pretty good there. I think I'm going to stick with that, and even increase the spread here and make that glow a little bit more harsh there. There we go. Let's do 1. Okay. And again, it's a layer style. I can always come back and change it later. So go ahead and click OK there. So now I'm ready to animate this little graphic element here. So I want it to actually sweep from the left side to the right side off view really, really fast. So I'm just going to go ahead and go down here to my timeline and twirl down the layer 1 properties, and shows the different properties I can animate. Now, if you're familiar with a program like After Effects, you'll know that there are a lot more features you can animate. And here we just have 3. We can animate the position of the graphic, the opacity, and the style. Basically, whatever style is applied to it, we can animate over time. So we're going to actually animate the positioning here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this little stopwatch next to the word position, and that establishes a keyframe. This little triangular or diamond-shaped handle here is a keyframe. Now, we have established the beginning point of the animation, so I'm actually going to push this off of sight or out of view on the left side here. Now I'm holding down my shift key as I do this. That's to keep it constrained to the left and right angle there. And I'm just going to move that off out of view there until the glow is out of view. There we go. So this is where the animation is going to start. And I'm going to go and bring my playhead, just grab this playhead with the red line and move it a few seconds, or not a few seconds, but a few frames down, and actually move it to right about there. And then I'm going to go back up in here in the menu, again holding down the shift key, and click and drag the graphic to the other side. And now if I move that playhead back and forth, you can see it travels across the screen. Pretty cool. Now I think I'm going to change the length of that. I want it to make it a little bit longer there. There we go. So that means it's kind of a little bit more in view here over this keyframe, so we'll just nudge it out of the view there a little bit more. Now it'll travel across. So there's my graphic element just whipping on across the screen. Now you'll notice where the keyframe, the first keyframe I established here, is right here at the beginning, very beginning of the timeline. I'm actually going to drag and select both of those keyframes, and they're indicated to being selected as when they're yellow. I'm going to drag them both over a little bit. This way the video will play for a moment, for a split second, and then it will sweep that graphic across there. So you can actually get a quick preview of how it's going to play by narrowing your work field, these little two control handles up here, just narrowing the area, and then hitting the space bar, and it will render those frames out, and it will just keep looping it, and you can see that that graphic's traveling across. Now, if it seems like it's traveling a little too slow, in this case I want it to go a little faster, just take this ending keyframe and nudge it closer to the other keyframe. The shorter the distance between the two keyframes, the faster the animation. So let's see how we got now. So that's giving me a good little whip through there. It looks pretty good. I think I'm going to shorten it a little bit more, actually. So we'll just see what we got. It's fun if you add sound effects as you go, too. You can actually add sound files inside Photoshop here as well. So once you add a graphic, you can do the sound effect as well. So that element looks pretty good. All right. So now I want, when this graphic element gets to about this point, I want it to reveal some text. To kind of say, maybe we're in the gamma quadrant or something like that, something cool. So let's actually do that. I like that. Little Toy Story reference there, but I don't care. So we'll just type the words gamma quadrant. So I'm going to position that right where I want it to reveal. I'm going to actually look a little bit bigger. Maybe even skew that text a little bit more, giving it a little bit more stylized there. There we go. Something right about there. Now, so if I play the animation, you can see that the swipe goes through, and this is where I don't want the text to be seen until it gets to this point, right? Boom. After that beam passes, that's when I want it to reveal. So I'm just going to use my right arrow key and nudge this over to this point right about here. And then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to trim this clip. Now if I notice in the timeline, I'm going to put my cursor at the beginning of the timeline here on the text layer. Grab that corner handle and bring it to that playhead until it snaps into place, just like that. So now I've cut it off until it appears, boom, just like that. So when I play it through, whew, there you go. So now that text is appearing nicely. Quick and easy motion graphics. Now let's add one more thing to the text here. Right when that text appears, I'm going to go ahead and add that same glow, the same green glow that's on the graphic on the text. Now over here in the layers panel, you can do that quickly and easily by holding down the Option key or Alt key and then clicking on that effects icon and dragging it to the text layer. Basically, it's a quick and easy way of copying, pasting that layer style. Now notice when I play the head, drag the playhead through and it comes through, it appears, the text looks pretty good, and then it's got that glow on it. What I want to happen though is to have that glow a little bit brighter, and then I want it to dim down as after that glow has passed, so it's almost like it's cooling down in a sense. So let's go inside of this layer style here, and let's increase the sun. Actually, no, we're going to increase the spread a little bit so that glow gets a little bit more harsh. There we go. So all I did was adjust the glow on that text layer, and I'm going to go in here into the timeline and twirl down the properties, and you notice we have all the same properties. Remember I mentioned style will change the layer style that's applied. In this case, this outer glow. So I'm going to go over here and just click on, check on the style, the stopwatch next to style, and it establishes a keyframe. I'm going to move this over a little bit. The swipe is going to pass out of frame, and I'm going to let a few beats pass to right about here. And then I'm going to go up in the layers panel and just turn off this layer style right here where it says next to effects. Now watch what happens in the timeline when I do this, when I turn off these effects on this layer. Boom. It automatically establishes a keyframe because we've changed the appearance of this style from this keyframe to this one. Here it has the glow, here it does not have the glow, and it's going to do that over time. Notice as I drag through, that glow dies down. Boom. It's going to go there and just deactivate. Now, if you want it to fade, if you want it to, instead of just abruptly stopping, if you want it to do a fade, you can go and back into that keyframe there. And we'll turn that style back on, and let's go back inside of there. And then we'll bring the opacity down to 0. Now this should give us a fade. Now so you can see it's fading. So you can have it abruptly stop at a certain point, or have it just kind of hot glow and then it dies down and reveals the white text in there. So let's play this through and see what we've got. And there we have our really cool animation revealing our text. Now, beauty of this being is that this is still an editable text layer, so we can go ahead and change this, even with the layer style applied to it. We'll do something like Planet Corey. Why not? Why? Because we can. So again, we don't have to change anything about the animation that we've done or anything like that. I'll just play it through. We've changed the text, and it still looks fantastic. So just one of the many ways you can take advantage of motion graphics and these animation capabilities here inside Photoshop, not to mention the ability to bring in video files. You can actually open up a QuickTime movie here inside Photoshop, add it to your animation, create fully realized motion graphics along with video. Again, this is both in standard and extended versions, whole lot of possibilities.